Hi, freaks, and welcome to another show. Thank you for tuning in and following along with us in our movie club, like a book club, but for dummies. Isn't that right, guys?
Are you saying dummies
Only
don't
those
read?
old Internet for Dummies and PCs for Dummies. So, joining me tonight is my good friend Nathan. Hey, Nathan, how are you? Looking purple again tonight?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, nice and
Good.
colourful, yeah.
And also with some purple highlights in her hair, we've got Sue. Hey, Sue.
Hey,
Feeling good?
yeah, just fine.
So
It's
we've.
been a very, very long, busy day.
Oh, that's no good. So all three of us have been in lockdown, so we're loving being able to catch up, even if it is via Zoom, which is part and parcel of living in this day and age.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so let's get into it. So the movie that we're watching, or that we have watched, is the second part of Fear Street. So Fear Street Part 2, 1978. So this is part of the trilogy that's been released on Netflix. They released one per week. And this one is set in 1978. It's got the same director as last time. She's also written the screenplay along with Zach
Oh,
Olkowicz.
Olkowicz?
Yes, that's
Olkowicz?
right.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, geez, none of them have good surnames. I mean, well, easy surnames, I
Yeah.
should say.
Phil also, he was one of the screenwriters from the last one.
Yeah, I
So
remember
I
that
wonder if
surname.
he plotted it out, but then these guys took over writing the screenplay.
That would make sense.
Mm.
Cool. So, picking up from the last film, we're back in 1994, and Dina and Josh Johnson restrain Sam, Dina's girlfriend, who is possessed, and they travel to C. Berman's house for help. So, that's the letter C, as in the first initial of said person's name, which could become important. Initially reluctant, Berman allows them inside and begins to recount the events of Camp Nightwing massacre. So we meet the mysterious C. Berman from the last film. So a woman with some issues. It was interesting how she had all of the little timers set up to remind her to do things. Doesn't she? Obviously, doesn't have an iPhone. Oh no, it's 1994. What am I saying?
Exactly.
She
Well,
had
seven.
many
Yeah,
clocks.
94.
Many clocks. I did like all the clocks.
And I also like that she had
It
a.
seems efficient. Lots and lots of clocks saying at this time do this, at this time do that. Lots of reminders.
She also had a blue roan cocker spaniel, which is the same as my puppy dog. So I was happy to see a cocker spaniel on screen. But her cocker spaniel was much quieter when people are banging on the window than mine would be. I don't think mine would be happy to be quiet and hide in a cupboard like hers was.
I did think it was funny that when they brought in the tied up Sam, and C says, keep her away from Major Tom, which is the dog's name, which we already know, but no
Yeah,
one questions that. No one goes, who the hell's
Who's
Major
Major
Tom?
Tom?
yeah, I thought
Okay.
that too. I'm like, oh, that must be the dog's name, but.
I know, like, what, the
I
record?
don't know.
The record?
And also, because she put the dog in the wardrobe, which is one of those sort of 1980s style louver ones,
Yeah,
like from the
yeah,
Halloween
yeah.
movies, isn't it?
Mhm.
That was a little bit of a
I hadn't
throwback.
thought of that
I
at the time,
enjoyed.
but yeah, I
Bit
think
of
you're
a
right,
movie
Nathan.
reference, or maybe Old American Homes like that.
I liked, when they were hearing the news report about what had happened in the previous film, and they were talking about, by these discovered what the assumption was about what happened, and they said something like that they were found with nothing but a bag of broken dreams or something like that. So corny.
Oh,
Like,
saddest thing.
Junky's dream too.
That's so true, though.
It's true. It's true.
So it's story time, kids. So picture this: it's 1978 in Sicily. I mean, in summer camp. And Ziggy Berman from Shadyside is accused of stealing from a Sunnyvale camper and her friends. They rope her up to a tree and begin to burn her before the camp counselor, Nick Goody, is it Nick Good? And Kurt intervene. How brutal are these kids?
Mm.
It's like,
I know they're like real mean kids. She's a real mean girl. That brunette.
yeah.
That's Sheila. She's a real
It's
nasty bitch.
I was almost convinced that they were actually going to kill her. Like they seemed pretty full on.
Yeah.
But I think from the first film, like we had that initial death of someone that you were expecting to be killed, and I was like, oh,
True.
how's this going to play out? This is interesting. Although I did realize that the Stranger Thing girl is in most of the movie, so I knew that wasn't going to happen. But
The trailer.
they couldn't
The
kill
poster.
two Stranger Thing
Yeah.
girls off within the first 15 minutes of the film. So we don't have
Well, they got to free them up to do the next season that they're holding back
oh, Stranger
forever.
Things.
So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it's taken a long time for the next one to come out. Yeah.
Crazy long.
So we don't have summer camp like they do in the States, but we do have school camps, which are kind of similar. Did you guys like going on a school camp?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I actually didn't enjoy school camps. But I know other kids do, but you're going along and you're just like sleeping in these sort of dingy dormitories, uncomfortable beds, bugs and spiders and dust and shared bathrooms, and there's no TV or heaters or anything. And I also got me thinking, because school camps, they usually go for maybe like a few days or like up to a week. How long does like an American summer camp go for? Because that's sort of, I've only know about them from movies, and I'm assuming a lot longer.
I thought it was like a month, but that's complete assumption. I don't think I ever looked it up.
Yeah, I think I assume it's like over there because they had that summer break, don't they? So I thought it was like all over that time because our summer break is Christmas and New Year's, so we obviously spend that time with them with family. But I think because they have their summer break in the middle of the year, they ship their kids off to these concentration camps or something.
It'll toughen them up.
Fat camp or
character.
Like Americans, like I do love America, like it's one of my favorite places to visit. But when you do visit America, like on TV, it seems very similar to Australia. But when visiting and when you think about it, they do have a lot of differences, as many differences as we do have similarities.
Yeah, agreed. To be honest, in this scene, I didn't really think anything too terrible was going to happen because the way it was shot was just middle of the day. It didn't feel like something really bad was going to happen to me. And to be honest, I was way too distracted going, oh my God, they haven't captured the 70s again. For God's sake, they couldn't do the 90s, they can't do the 70s. Look at what these kids are wearing. Look at their haircuts. So yeah, I was too busy doing that.
I didn't go into quite that much detail, but I just remember thinking, like, oh, that looked like a nice place. I would want to be, let alone having some mean girl burning me with a cigarette lighter. So yeah, I was in the moment there thinking, yeah, that's not fun.
They were quite cruel.
So very much sympathising for the redhead there. Yeah.
Yeah. Poor Nathan, were you triggered?
I was. I'm back in my day. Not cigarette lighter.
Oh dear, poor Nathan. Okay, so Ziggy's older sister Cindy and her boyfriend Tommy Slater are cleaning the mess hall when Nurse Lane, the mother of Shadyside killer Ruby Lane, attacks Tommy, saying that he will die by the end of the night. Before she is then removed from the camp by police. So this kind of made me think of It's Got a Death Curse from Friday the 13th. It's Ralph, isn't it? From Friday the 13th, who sort of does that precursor to what's going to happen in the movie. So I thought that was a nice sort of throwback to, because this is a very, like, I think the first one was Scream meets Halloween, whereas this one is obviously very Friday the 13th. And I thought that was a nice sort of flavor of Friday the 13th with having that soothsayer at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, she's a doom lady, and we find out that she's been doing research about the witch, trying to figure out what happened with her daughter as well, because obviously she's connected. But then when she goes after Tommy as well, it's like, hang on, what's going on here? Is resident sort of crazy person, or is there more to that?
She didn't have like a little iron glad bag, like saying, "It's got a death curse." It's not the
It's not the
same.
same. It's just not the same. No, and I want the snake that they can jump on the bed
Well, they did
and
have a
cry
snake.
about
There was
and
a snake
stuff.
in it later on.
True.
But yeah, they didn't chop
Yeah.
it in half like they did in Friday the 13th, which is still quite the most distressing thing in the film.
Yes, it is.
No.
I never look at that scene. I never.
So let's talk about the cast. So we've got another ensemble cast here. Besides Sadie Sink, which I keep seeing Sadie Stink. I don't know why, because I'm an idiot. How
Happened at
immature?
school.
Yeah, I'm sure she did.
Yeah.
While being stabbed with a compass. She was the only one that I knew, and I find her. Like, she's a star. Like, she's got the X factor. I love her in Stranger Things, and I love her in this as well.
Okay.
What did you guys think of the cast?
So she doesn't really do
Really?
for me.
I thought you were into redheads too.
No,
Sue.
I find her a little bit. She's okay. She's all right, but I think she's a bit one note personally. I don't feel any depth.
Yeah, she was quite very similar to a Stranger Things character, which I actually really like her as Max in Stranger Things. So I didn't really have an issue with that. But I was wondering about that. I was thinking, so are we going to see her in more diverse roles as she grows up and gets into more different things? See if she can do something different.
Well, some people can carve a whole career out of being broody, so
Oh, absolutely.
maybe that's where she'll stay.
I know that Gillian Jacobs from. I knew her face, and I never got around to looking up what she'd been in. But the whole time I'm looking at her, I was trying to figure it out.
Who was that again, Sue? Sorry?
Gillian Jacobs.
She was in another Netflix show. She was in, is it just Love? The one set in LA, just her and some guy who's a writer for a TV show.
What was it called again?
I think it's just called Love. So that's one thing I noticed a little bit with the last installment as well. It's like in shows like this, it's like, right, maybe people just sign. It's like the MCU. You sign a contract with Netflix and they'll just pick you up.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Like, is that a thing? Like,
yeah.
Because I've seen that before with other Netflix people popping up in other Netflix shows.
Yeah, I thought it was just a Ryan Murphy thing, but yeah, I think you're right. Like, they do. It's like the old studio days where they sign them up and then you just have to do whatever they say.
Yeah, yeah, probably. You're now playing this character. Oh,
Broody girl number 3 again.
Or maybe they just share like, or maybe they just share like similar sort of casting people working for Netflix, the same production companies. Maybe.
I thought the guy that played Tommy, McCabe Sly, I thought he had an interesting look. Tommy.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mind.
He wasn't
him.
in it that much, but again, he just did the brooding sort of boyfriend. But I thought he kind of did have that 70s look to me. Like, I didn't think he looked out of place.
He looked a lot closer than everyone else, definitely.
What about the girl who played Alex? She looked familiar to me, but I couldn't figure out where from.
Yeah, I looked her up and I hadn't seen her in anything either, but I thought the same, Nathan. I'm like, I've seen that girl before.
Oh, she was so badly cast. Or at least the character was so wrong for that era.
Yeah,
so
I
wrong.
kind of agree. Like, she was the one that stood out to me as being, a little jarring. Like, I think she was badly written.
Yeah, that person.
Not from that time.
Maybe 80s.
Yeah, her character's more like a 80s or 90s character than 70s. But other than that, I didn't really recognize anyone.
No, but I thought it was a better cast than. I thought the last cast was quite good, but I thought this cast was better. Although there was probably more of them, so there wasn't. It was harder to pin anyone down as being fantastic. But I thought everyone.
They had better.
They did have better chemistry, I think.
Yeah, like they hung together better as a group together. I felt like you thought these people could actually be friends, where it seemed very disparate in the last one, and I didn't necessarily buy that they would all know each other and be in the same group.
Yeah, last time it seemed like they were casting for diversity, whereas this one it felt like they were casting as a group, like for chemistry.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah, like more authentic what you'd think a 70s school camp would look like. Well, not school camp, but summer camp. Also interesting, I thought, because usually in most of the movies with the focus on camps is usually focused either on the kids or the counselors. But we've got a little bit of an overlap of both of those sort of groups, and obviously Ziggy and she has a bit of a special relationship happening with the Nick soon to be detective or sheriff guy, and they mentioned that she's basically a final year camper. He's a first year counsellor, so there's still a close sort of age group. But I just thought that was just interesting that we get to see sort of a bit more of the overall camp experience.
See, I felt they led into each other a bit too much. I prefer in the 70s where there was a sharp line of these are the counsellors and these are the campers. And I feel like they can mix, but I kept forgetting it was who, to be honest.
They do that in The Burning.
Yeah.
Like, I don't...
Oh, there were, like, obviously some of the kids...
Friday the 13th, they separated counsellors from campers. But The Burning, they did sort of blur the lines. Sleepaway Camp as well, yeah. They sort of did mix it up a bit. But this one didn't have George Costanza in it.
No. And not enough
true. Okay, so while investigating the infirmary, Cindy and Tommy encounter counsellors Alice, Cindy's former friend, and her boyfriend Arnie. Oh, Arnie! They find the nurse's diary, which says that Fia made a deal with the devil by cutting her hand on Satan's stone, thereby earning eternal life. How simple. They also find a map, which gives them direction to Fia's house. I do like the setup of finding the diary, and like the nurse has done all the groundwork for them. It's like...
True. But it's another one of those dumping exposition things that I just kind of drift off, to be honest. I kind of super interested in the mythology. I find it really uninteresting. If you got to explain...
These movies have a lot of mythology, don't they? They're really building it up.
Yeah, and I didn't... when she walked in and caught them smoking and she was like so anti-pot. Like, this is the 70s, man. I mean, the good girl didn't always smoke it, but she wasn't anti
Alice did Friday the 13th. She was still fine with it.
Right? I just was like, come on. This is another one of those, I hate saying woke, but it's one of those kind of things. Like,
surely back in the 70s, though, there would have been some people that were very, I guess, good and not into that whole sort of drugging culture, especially. Well, you think every teenager was like none of them were more pure than others, or more conservative, I should say.
Yeah, but no, I don't think they would have been anti-pot. It was everywhere. I think they might have been, it's not for me. Totally fine.
Yeah. But I still disagree, because she was trying to be a counsellor and trying to be professional as well, and saying, no, you shouldn't be doing that in this environment. So I don't disagree with that.
Fight. So...
I would never fight. You just run.
So very quickly, the teens find the house in the forest and they discover the witch's mark below the house. Alice and Cindy find a wall carved with names of all the former Shady Side killers, and Tommy's name is included. Woo! It's at this point that for some reason Tommy is suddenly possessed and kills Arnie with an axe. The girls escape in a cave and are sealed in by a rock fall. They really don't hold back in the gore in this movie, do they? They really kind of show everything. It's...
Yes and no. So, all right, the axe killing there, just like in the first one as well, they had the really sort of brutal bits that looked very gory and very 80s slasher movie style. But then when the killer starts going after kids later on in the movie, they're all killed off screen. So they'll only show the counselors being butchered, but not the kids.
Yeah, I did notice that as well, and was like, it's a little bit pussy. Like, if you could...
I thought, like, his face, like, and he's not much older than the campers, but his head was split in half. Like, it was pretty gory.
It's true, but I mean, they show that on like regular TV these days. Like it's on Walking Dead and stuff. So it feels like it's not as big a taboo as it used to be. But I'm glad they did. Like it was a bit more. It's
I'm
more
sure that Friday the
appropriate in
13th
horror
would have
movies.
done that back in the day. It's just that they didn't have the technology to do that sort of computer effects where slashing can be so graphic.
I think it did really well with what it had, though. Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was graphic enough because of... Yeah, it was graphic enough at the time, I think. We just have higher expectations now, maybe.
So, at camp, Nick helps Ziggy prank Sheila and lock her in the toilet block. As the two bond and share a kiss, Tommy reaches the camp and murders several shady side campers, including Councillor Joan. Yeah, so you kind of touched on it there. This is where I was kind of shocked that they kill the kids. Like, I don't think they killed too many kids. Like, now that I think of it, they did kill them in the burning. Yeah, but Friday the 13th would never kill the kids like that, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I guess it makes it a bit... So I was going to say, maybe it makes it a little bit more scary and more believable if there actually is a body count and people dying.
And I kind of feel like this is more aimed at a younger audience, so maybe it's more scary to them if they could also be potential victims. So
but it is R-rated, which is kind of... I'm not sure of the ratings in America. Like, I think that's like our MA rating, but that still is quite high.
Oh yeah, it is quite a high rating, but I still feel it's more aimed towards, like I felt like the previous one was junior. I feel like this is
it's
also
very confusing to me, like that they show quite a bit of gore, but then I don't find this scary at all. Either of them scary, and this one feels less junior than the other one, but it is weird at its who it's targeted at. Like I find that's one of the flaws of these movies.
But because I feel like they're trying to cover all their bases, which means that they lose, their genre uniqueness if they're trying to make everyone happy.
Yeah, especially when it ends up being a bit of a homage and showing bits and pieces of different movies, really. It's just a cut and paste, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I did like this one better than the other movie, but at the same time, it didn't have a huge amount of originality.
Yeah, so Cindy and Alice try to escape the cave system by using the witch's mark in the diary as a map to the cave. They come across a pile of beating organs, which Alice touches. Of course you would do that if you came across some weird pulsing flesh.
Pulsating thing in the dark.
Which gives her... and this gives her flashbacks of all of the past killers and their victims. After Alice runs off and injures her leg, she reconciles with Cindy, and the two reach a cave opening beneath the outhouse. Yeah, so that beating lump of flesh, I kind of thought that was kind of out of place for this movie. What did you think of that?
It was...
They're doing basically a witch story / slasher movie, and why is there suddenly this giant pulsating heart thing in the ground that's connected to the earth? It was just weird.
See, and I don't feel like it wants to be a slasher, but it also wants to have this whole gothic mythology behind it as well. So they've mixed the genres already. So that's probably why it's not really working
everything
for me.
To everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, was that meant to be disturbing body horror? Yeah. I don't
know. Maybe, or is that sort of a little bit more blob type thing, but in reference to that maybe?
Everybody.
Yeah, so
I guess probably I got more disturbed by when she fell over and broke her leg and you could see the bone sticking out. That to me was more cringeworthy than the big blob. Yeah. And then also when they get to the caves, which is below the outhouse, and you realise, oh, hang on, how are they going to get out? They're going to have to get out crawling up this mountain of
That
shit.
kind of was the
That
grossest
might
bit
not
in
be
the whole
scary,
movie.
but it's still gross and cringy.
That really horrified me.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine the stink.
Yeah, the toilet situation was not the best, and no one seemed to be that concerned about that they were sitting right under. So I'm assuming they were standing in what had been expelled from
Have
up
you ever
top.
seen? Have you ever done
Oh,
anything
yeah.
in a long drop? Like whenever I go to a long drop, like it stinks, like it's the most gross thing. But
Is that
yeah.
what they're called?
Yeah,
But
you hold
like
your breath.
normally in Australia, there's
Oh,
lots of
I didn't
flies
know
coming
there
out
was.
of it as well, or spiders. But I always look down. Like you want to see what's there. Like, hasn't anyone noticed that there's this giant cave system underneath the toilet? Like,
They must have built it on top of the cave system on purpose, thinking, right, I'm too lazy to dig out a hole for this or a pit. There's caves there. Just poop in the caves, kid.
Well, yeah, I thought they would have kind of planned it that way because then
doesn't
that's
seem
where
that
it's going.
safe though. Like a kid could fall down there. Like,
70s,
true.
no one cared then.
Health and safety wasn't a big thing.
Whatever.
So after fighting an angry Sheila and knocking her unconscious, Ziggy and Councillor Gary try to rescue Alice and Cindy until Tommy decapitates Gary. Ziggy hides with Nick until he is injured by Tommy, slashed in the leg, and they escape to the mess hall. As the rest of the camp leaves via the bus, Cindy finds a route to the mess hall while Alice stays behind. I thought that was very Friday the 13th. How, okay, kids, let's go. Like, they all get on the bus and leave, and then there's like a couple of counselors left behind. Like that seems to happen in all of it. It's like get the kids out so we don't kill the kids.
Clear the camp. But also, it's a little bit Jurassic Park as well. So basically, clear out all the extras, so that way you've just got your core characters there. So
I thought it was kind of a cheat though, because the news article I thought said that everyone was killed in the camp and there was only one survivor, which really there was quite a few survivors. Like it wasn't just her. Yeah, they got a busload of kids, that jock guy, like you know.
That didn't count. But yeah, no, you're correct. That would. I wonder if that's how they would even report it. I don't think they would report it that way, given that it's not actually the truth.
It's kind of weird. I just got to put my headphones in. So moving right along. So Tommy attacks Ziggy, but Cindy intervenes and kills him. Alice arrives and tells them that she found the witch's hand, which was buried next to Satan's stone. So it's very convenient that she stumbles across all these things so quickly when the nurse looks like she'd been looking for a long time. It's like, oh, I found the hand. All is saved.
Basically,
here it was all along.
Doing it all.
Yeah, that was very, very bizarre. So the trio decides to end the curse by reuniting Sarah's hand when Ziggy suddenly bleeds on the hand. We've seen this before, and sees a vision of Seraphia. This triggers the curse, resurrecting several Shadyside killers. Tommy magically is reanimated and kills Alice before Cindy decapitates him. Ziggy and Cindy run to the tree where Fia was hanged, and with the Shadyside killers quickly in pursuit, they dig around the tree and find a rock saying, "The witch forever lives." This is when Cindy realizes that they are after Ziggy. She drops the hand and sacrifices herself. The two are murdered and the killers disappear until Nick comes in and finds them and saves Ziggy via CPR. So, Sue, I'll defer to you on this one because you're the closest medical expert. But Ziggy had died, obviously, due to stab wounds. Would you be able to resuscitate someone with CPR?
You probably could, but they wouldn't last long without something to keep him going, like emergency fluids and bloods. And if he's stabbed a liver or something, it's not really going to be easily just, oh, it's all right again, we're breathing again. Yes, temporarily, but really not. Like,
That's what I thought. I'm like, they're terrible at bringing people back to life believably. Like, obviously you can do it, but like, she was stabbed like
yeah.
quite a lot of times.
And once
It
she
seemed a bit
like,
lazy.
she's resuscitated, the blood's gonna start flowing again. So she's gonna bleed out pretty darn quick, really. But them
Mm.
two sort of stabbed and looking at each other was probably the only bit of the film that I quite liked. I thought I felt something. Like,
Yeah.
ooh. Oh, I actually like that. But yeah.
That was a good slaughtering.
That was actually a pretty sort of brutal scene as well, because it wasn't like a quick stab and then they die. It was like
It was
stab,
sad.
stab,
The
stab for
axing
quite
in the
some time. In
chest,
the chest.
especially because you
Yeah.
weren't sure like who the sister was. I'm like, how the hell is she gonna survive from that? Like,
Were you sure? I was sure from the minute it started.
she had red hair. The girl at the beginning had brown hair.
I'm a woman. We dye our hair all the time.
I did like, though, I guess something we glossed over a little bit when the other killers started coming out of the pit. So obviously we get to see, was it Ruby? So the switchblade killer from the first movie. We get to see her back again. And then also when Ziggy, Cindy, she's trying to attack Tommy and she goes after him with a sack. And then suddenly you see the sack pulled over his head and realize, you're the sack killer from the first movie as well. So that's how he gets his iconic look. But it all, again, just glossed over very, very quickly.
Yeah. I did know that the sack killer was going to be Tommy, like, because I'd seen the trailer and I think that's how I knew. But I do like that because Friday the 13th Part 2, as you know, is one of my favorite films.
Mhm.
And I love that version of Jason where he does have the pillowcase on his head, so it does sort of invoke those memories of Part 2. So Dina and Josh realize that C. Berman, the C, is actually Ziggy, whose real name is Christine. They tell her that they found the witch's body, and now, with the hand, they can end the curse. Their camp has been turned into the Shadyside Mall, where Dina and Josh go and dig up the hand from underneath the same tree. Isn't that amazing that the tree's still there?
I had issue with that. Exactly. And there's a tree which is meant to have been there since, 16 something. So 400 years later almost, still in the same sort of spot, not like a huge tree. Had a whole shopping mall built around it.
No,
then also that when you're looking at the design of it, it's in a raised garden.
Yeah, I know.
So surely at some point while they're building the mall around it, the soil around it would have been disturbed. But no, it hasn't. And the hand is still right there. Exactly the first spot they go to dig.
A raised bed they have built purposely. Like there's no way that was ridiculous.
Yeah. It wasn't believable at all. Yeah, I could do it believably, but that wasn't.
That was
just insulting to the audience. That's lazy writing.
Agreed.
Yeah. They tried to build. We had a tree like that in the shopping centre close to me, and they built the shopping centre around the tree, and then the tree died within a year, so it was very unbelievable.
Exactly, because surprise, surprise, trees don't like living inside shopping centres.
So temperamental.
Yeah. So they dig the hand up, and then they take it to the place where the body is buried, and Dina reunites the body with the hand. Dina's nose bleed, and she sees a vision where she is in 1666, and she is Seraphia. So this leads nicely into Part 3. So have they done enough to make you want to watch Part 3?
Well, all right. I did like this one better than the last one, and I did find it more scary. I still didn't completely get into it. I still don't like necessarily the supernatural angle, but I did like it better. I'm curious to see where it goes.
If we weren't talking about it, no, I wouldn't watch it. I don't think it's particularly interesting. I drifted off quite a lot. I'm like, oh, it's still going. Like it took 45 minutes for anyone to die. 45 minutes, for God's sakes! It's a slasher. Like there was just so many things. Like we didn't see the color war. They didn't take advantage of the camp thing at
Mm.
all. We could have seen so much more campy stuff. If they're going to stretch it out, be something interesting.
There was still a lot of talk about the two towns versus each other. So obviously that was a big part of the backstory for the first movie, which we saw. So there's still rivalry going on here. And we hear a little bit more about the towns in terms of they used to be, I think, one, and then they got separated. So I'm guessing that's where we're getting to in the next movie.
Yeah.
Probably.
Also interesting in the little, basically it's a teaser for the next movie that we get to see. The same actors that we've seen in the last two movies are popping up for another one.
I did like that.
So it's almost, well, it's a bit American Horror Story.
I thought that was clever.
I mean, they had that wacky music again as well. I noticed it a lot more this time. Like, oh, let's be goofy. And you're like, that's not really appropriate.
Yeah, whoever did the music is terrible.
Also, had someone say shagadelic in this movie.
Oh, they did.
That word was invented in 2007. Like,
I know. Austin Powers.
Yeah, for me, I bought that this was in the 70s more than I bought the last one was in the 90s. I don't know whether because I'm more familiar with the 90s than I am the 70s. I do understand what you mean, that there were some bits in it that were anachronistic and weren't totally believable. But I found that for the most part, I wasn't as taken out of the film by those differences than what I was with the first one.
I think I was the opposite.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A lot more in this one. Because the 70s are a lot easier to do as well. Like, there's so much footage and photos of what kids look like in the 70s. There's loads of stuff. I just feel like there's no excuse, really. And it's very definite look, too. Whereas the 90s, I feel, was a bit more of a borrowing from other areas, other eras. But the 70s was really very strong look.
I thought they got the look of, maybe if it was in the 70s, I thought they got the look of those early slasher films that took place on the camp. Like, I thought and I don't know whether, because we don't have these type of forests in Australia, but I thought the forests looked very much like the Friday the 13th forests.
Yeah.
I thought the camp itself looked very believable to me. So yeah, I think, and because they were wearing camp uniforms that are fairly standard, yeah, it was really just some of the ones who were out of the uniform that then sort of took it out of it.
I agree the camp looked 70s, but I didn't feel like the film felt 70s.
Yeah, I think it's the way it's filmed, like that brightly lit, kind of juvenile, cheap look, is what's been its downfall for both of the films.
Yeah, agreed.
It felt like a little bit like it lacked soul and authenticity. It was just, again, I think similar to what I mentioned before, it's just like a movie by the numbers. To sort of fill in the gaps, take a little bit of this, bit of that. It's not creating something new from scratch.
And I don't know how you felt about it, but for me, in the first film, they told us that there was only one survivor. They told us that it was one of the sisters, and I knew that who the killer was, like that was the same killer. So what do we get out of the movie? There was no real tension because we knew what was going to happen. We knew that, and to be honest, I didn't know which sister it was, but I don't think that really mattered. It was just kind of like a twist.
But you knew one of them was going to get resuscitated.
But yeah, everything else was written. Like, it's like, okay, well, I'm watching this, but I'm not invested because I know everyone's going to get killed except for one person. But it again, like not everyone did get killed because the sheriff or whatever, who revived, he survived.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, true.
What a load of shit!
So, they're not even sticking to their own mythology they've created then.
He's talking about Stephen King in it as well and saying he's hugely popular, blah blah. It's like, he was not hugely popular then. He became popular in the early 80s.
Didn't they say Carrie was his best book?
He'd only written 2.
It was Carrie out at that point, because there were quite a few Carrie references where they actually talked about Carrie and Lockie. Sheila into the toilet with the bucket she was going to tip paint over, but they changed that.
Yeah. I mean, unless they were like a
then?
massive fan, but it wasn't that big a film, and it wasn't that the book wasn't that big.
Isn't it one of his worst books?
It's very difficult to read. It reads like it's like interviews and newspaper clippings. It's not written like a narrative. It's written like that. I think they did excellent making a film out of what they had, to be honest. It's a great book because I know the story, but I don't know how I would have felt about it then. If that had been the first book someone had written, I don't know if I'd be like, well, this guy's a genius, like I say now. But yeah, he wasn't that popular then. So for everyone to talk about him like he's a household name was a bit silly.
So should we get into our final thoughts? Okay, so last time, Nathan, I think you went first. So Sue, do you want to go first?
No, I think it was me first last time, but
was it? Okay,
again.
Nathan.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely liked it better than the first one. I found it quite watchable. I found it, it passed. I didn't love it. So I guess that's the issue perhaps in our rating system. Maybe it's not complete trash, but it's not a Pash either. But it would probably fall more into the trash category because of it lacks the originality.
It's a trash.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nathan. And so Sue, what are your thoughts? I wonder what your thoughts are, Sue. Keep us in suspense.
I know, it's a mystery. I'm quite a closed book, aren't I? I would say, not a fan. I found it quite talky, but didn't really say anything. Kind of boring. Alice pissed me off all the way through because she was completely wrong for the era. In fact, most of them didn't look or talk the way they should have. The kills are okay. I like the ending. Didn't really care for it. So it's the trash.
Surprise, surprise.
I know, it's a shocker.
So I think we're all kind of on the same page. For me, I probably enjoyed it more than what you guys did. This era of horror movies is my favorite. Like, I'll watch really any of those late 70s, early 80s slasher films. They're my favorite horrors. So I think the nostalgia of that did pull me in. I did like the cast for the most part. I do agree with you about Alice that she was like standing out like a sore thumb, but I think everyone else seemed quite good to me. I do like the Stranger Things girl. I do like her broodiness. I liked her sister. I thought she was good as well. I hated the bits where they flash back to the 90s, but everything else I thought was quite good. I agree the ending was quite good. I really liked the gore bits. It could be a lot. There was no scares. Like, I didn't think it was scary at all. It was annoying that we basically knew the whole plot right from the word go. So there wasn't much to follow along with. So for me, it is borderline. Do I go Pash? Do I go trash? Would I watch this movie again? I don't think so. But I think it's something that if you've watched the first one, you have to watch the second one. And I think it was better than the first one. And it did make me want to continue and watch the third one. So I think I'm going to go trash. It is trash, but it's better trash than the last one.
It is. I wonder though, one of the things I really didn't like is when they did the book ending with the 90s. So like setting up the beginning and then at the end, let me tell you a story, kids, type thing. I thought that was very cheesy. But I'm wondering if the filmmakers, they made the movie sort of cheesy on purpose. Or if they thought, no, we're actually making something really good. They're making like real quality cinema here. In that case, they failed.
I would like to hope that they're thinking that they want to make something cheesy, but I really think that they think that they're making something that's revolutionary here.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I think so.
Which is even worse.
Oh, that's sad for them.
And I think I said this in the last review, like this is such a great concept, like to take the best bits of slasher movies, but they haven't made slasher films. Like I don't feel like these are slasher films at all. They've used some slasher tropes, but it's witches and it's you know lumps of flesh that have come out of the ground. Like it's all just very weird, and it's all very kiddie, and it's very
Scratch that.
confused.
If
Yeah, I
they
don't
created
mind.
a whole mythology and just did a straight slasher, I would have been so much happier.
Or like Scream. Scream had a different slasher in each of the films, but they did it believably. You didn't know who the killer was. Like they were connected but not connected. It gave you the suspense. Like if you don't have to be, thriller. Like you don't have to be full on horror like gore, but at least give us some suspense. This movie didn't really have much suspense at all, if at all.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like a horror movie. It's got to horrify. That's the thing. So it's either got to be scary or you're looking think, oh. And really, the grossest bits for me are again where she broke her leg and the toilet.
When she got to push back in.
Yeah. So
that's like every day at work to me. So.
Yeah.
Sue works in a mine.
I'm always snapping broken bones back in.
Oh, that one again.
Yeah,
So, are we going to watch the third one? I feel like I'm a completionist. The third one, like we discussed in the last review, I really hate that ye olde worldy witchcraft bullshit. But I feel like I need to have some answers, like questions answered. So I need to know what this whole blob of flesh is. Like they need to answer that.
I wonder if they will.
I wonder if they will. Yeah, I'm curious.
Because I'm prepared to be real pissed off that a lot of the things aren't tied up. I do find it interesting that they've brought back the cast from the last two films and they've sort of combined them and recast them for 1666.
I
so
agree
I'm interested in that. That sort of piqued my interest. But I know that I'm going to be disappointed that it's going to be kiddie and, a weird tone.
Yeah.
But I feel like I need to watch the last one. What do you think? Do I watch it in solitude or are we going to watch it?
Like a high
No,
production of The Witch.
I'll watch it.
I'll watch it.
I'm definitely curious. So I don't have high expectations.
Yeah.
I'm curious just to see how it pans out.
Yeah. And plus, it's more fun when you can discuss it and pull it apart later.
Yeah.
I find if a film's bad, at least we're talking about it and we're, like you said, calling it out for all its bullshit.
Yeah.
That way people can learn from it and not repeat those mistakes.
Yeah, listen to us, filmmakers out there. Learn from us. Well, so tune in 2 weeks' time. We watch horror films every Thursday. We get together and we talk about said horror films. So watch along and watch part 3 of Fear Street. And then join us on the chat. We go live on Thursdays, on Thursday evenings in Australia. And if you can't join us, then we do post it on our YouTube channel, so you can rewatch it at a later date. So that you're notified of when we're going live, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, you like what we're doing so that we can get more followers, and click that bell icon so you're notified when we are going live. Also, follow us on our social media. So we're at Horror Movie Freaks on Facebook and Horror Movie. I'm so glad we've got Horror Movie. Like that's so cool on Twitter. If someone wants to buy that off of us though, like for a lot of money, we're happy to sell.
A lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
And then you have to subscribe as well.
Yeah. Pay us millions of dollars and then subscribe.
And then we'll talk.
Yeah. But until next time, make sure you play in the shadows and stay safe, freaks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.